So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. This week we are going over something a little bit different. It's still audio, just a different sort of headphone than we probably talk about. We usually talk about over-ear headphones, earbuds, things like that. However, due to my trips coming up regarding skiing and snowboarding, I wanted to get something specific around that would help me enhance my experience. I don't know, trekking back forever, I've always wanted to have music to help me lock me into my ride and make me feel a vibe, and just really have some more fun on the mountain, because obviously it's great in terms of just riding and feeling that feeling of carving. However, with music it would just be better. So in the back in the day, I would just use the old Apple, the Apple headphones that came with your iPod, and I would use those. But the problem is that with those, you couldn't really get your surroundings, and that's the biggest issue with earbuds in general, is that you don't really get your surroundings in it. So whether you're wired or unwired, because it's stuck in your ear, there's going to be that isolation, so you just won't understand what's going around you. And that's really important for skiing, because to me, especially in the Northeast, when the mountain's so small, really icy, there's a lot of unexperienced riders around, you need to be able to hear things coming at you, because they might be coming from any which direction, and you need to be able to react to it. So I think having that awareness is super important. So yes, I know what you guys are going to say. Earbuds have transparency mode now these days. So can I just use that? I would say you could, but there's a couple of reasons why I think that's not even going to be sufficient. So one is that despite those modes, they are technically tuned up or down, depending on the quality, to bring in the surroundings so you're aware of them. However, they can't really tell you how far. So you may come in very, very accurately, when you're talking to someone. The AirPods Pro are great. They sound, very natural. You don't have to speak up too loud. You can kind of have a natural conversation without your voice having to be modified. However, it may bring things in that sound right next to you that are farther away. And so I just think there's not an accurate spatial representation of sound that can beat just the natural human ear. Especially if you're using something like the Neurotrus or the neural loops, you're going to think that you have superhuman hearing with those earbuds. So you're going to think that everything is right next to you, but it's not. So I think it's just going to be a little bit disoriented, and you might be a little bit paranoid on the mountain. So that's the reason why I think that earbuds aren't the greatest. The other reason is that because, especially the wireless ones, you're going to have a battery constriction there. Obviously, in colder conditions, if you guys have ever snowboarded, hiked in cold conditions, and done everything like that, your battery will die, because the lithium ions just drain a lot faster in colder conditions, unless they're protected by a pocket or some kind of gel pouch or something that keeps and retains that battery at an ideal temperature. However, if you're wearing earbuds, those are obviously exposed to the elements a little bit more, especially as you're riding, the wind will get to it. So with a smaller battery and the conditions hitting it straight on, they're definitely going to die faster than they normally would. So over that I just don't think that earbuds are great. Obviously over-ear headphones aren't going to really work with a helmet, and I get it, some people will just wear a beanie, but even with that, it's going to move around, it'll fall off probably, and you don't want to lose your headphones on the mountain. But I definitely think that if you are a mountain, especially in the Northeast, you need to wear a helmet, because one, it's way harder snow, way icier snow, and there's just a lot of inexperienced people that go really, really fast and think that they're in the Olympics. There's just a lot of injuries up here. So I think that having a helmet is essential. So again, over ears kind of shot down. How I used to get around this, I think I started picking it up probably 3 years ago, where I was on a mountain, and I have a review actually around this if you want to check that out. But this dude just had a Bose speaker in his chest pocket, and it was actually really cool. So I actually did a review on a couple different options that you could take from the JBL and the Fugu Go that easily pocketable. You could play it, and I did rock with that for a couple seasons, and it was pretty successful. The thing that I did notice is that it did protrude out of the pocket, so especially on snowboard, sometimes I crash on my chest. It wasn't the most pleasant feeling thing. Obviously, it wasn't terrible, but if I ate it hard, that wasn't great. But the other thing is I was trying to be considerate of other people. So while it wasn't very annoying to people while I was riding, if I was on a lift with them, I was definitely cognizant, and I always rocked up and rocked down my volume to accommodate for that. But it was a little bit annoying to have to do that. So if you don't care, you don't care. But to me, I didn't want to be annoying. I don't want to ruin other people's rides just because I want to listen to music. So it was less convenient than I would expect. So this is why I'm trying to go right now and look into options of what I can do. So again, obviously earbuds aren't going to work. Headphones don't work. External speakers like the JBL, not ideal. You could do bone conduction, which, just fits around your ear and it sends it through your bones so you can hear things, gives you ultimate awareness. However, because of that band and the certain functions that they are now, especially if you crash on it and it's right behind your ear, it's not going to be the most comfortable thing, and it might mess with the fit of your helmet. So that's probably not going to be the most ideal situation either. Plus, the technology there is in terms of sound, and I still want to have good sound while on the mountain, but while still having my surroundings. And I could caveat around that, saying that I'm a little bit too fancy, but I'm still trying. There's other options out there. So going through all the options, it basically came down to the one solution. Well, that's a couple, but they are basically audio pucks for your helmets. So I have a Smith Optics Vantage helmet, and they have ear pads. And again, if you are someone that rides in warmer weather, you may not wear ear pads. But in the Northeast here, I need them all the time. So it's good because I can unzip the back and fit in speakers. And there's a lot of different options out there. And they basically come in two flavors. You have your true wireless audio puck variation, which is, just separate pucks that they fit into the ear pads. Those are cool. Generally, they have smaller batteries, and sometimes I'm a little bit worried about the beamforming in terms of like having them communicate with each other, especially in colder weather. I find that the wired options work better for me. I just like the fact that there's that retention between the two. They kind of stick in place more because they have that tension inside the ear pads. And the controls are just a little bit easier as well. What else? Oh, and the fact that I don't have to worry about them communicating to each other unless the wire is messed up. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of reliability in the wired version of the audio pucks. And that's the reason why we're going to go over these today, is to make sure that these ones are the right ones, because there's a ton of options out there, and I'll make sure that you guys get the right ones. So for today, we are looking at the Wildhorn Alta audio helmet headphones. But yeah, I said a lot at you, but check out the specs on these guys. The Wildhorn Altas are named after the ski resort in Washington State that is ski only. They do have a nice white and blue wintry color mix on them, which is very appropriate for its winter resistant rating. It is an IP45 rating, which means that it is cold resistant, water resistant, and sweat resistant, meaning that it should hold up to any sort of conditions that you throw at it. In terms of its functionalities, it is a 40mm driver that is connected with a sort of woven cord that you see here. And that woven cord is connecting the two drivers together, which are controlled by big rubbery buttons. So on the left side of the panel there, you see that you have your volume up and volume down. They also function as your next track and your previous track on hold. On your right side, you have your play pause with a press, as well as a hold function for your assistance. So whatever you are using on your phone and defaulted, it should be able to access that, which is great for phone calls and performing other actions that are not programmed into these headphones through the other side of the earbuds. So they do use an older standard using micro USB, so you won't have the fastest charging standards here, but once it is topped up, you should be able to have an all-day charge with 10 hours inside of the headphones. And when I mean 10 hours, I mean 10 hours of riding. I don't think that you will be using these constantly and once you're off the mountain, so this would be for your riding pleasure only. So now we have that overview out of the way, let's actually install these so we can see how these fit. So, helmet, earbuds, it's on the meat. Anyway, when you look at your Altas, there will be an indicator of left and right on the inside here. But you can also just differentiate them by your left side will have your playback, obviously, as we mentioned before, and then you'll have your sort of play pause and Siri or Google Assistant on your right. So let's start with the right one, the bigger ear pad. And again, in these headphones or in these helmets, you generally have options. So you can either put it right into next to your ear, so you have better audio, or you can put it on the outside of your ear where you have better access to controls. For me, Personally, I like having it on the outside so the controls are easier to access, but also to give me a little bit of spacing in between the ear or the headphone and my ear. So if I do crash, I'm not hitting direct plastic. I'm hitting the ear pad and then the plastic. The good thing about Smith is that all of their ear pads are very audio compliant, so there are perforated holes both on the lining as well as the padding on the inside. So if you do choose to put it on the outside, there's still holes that allow for pass-through of that music. So I think that's dope. And those don't really affect the warmness. So that's the reason why I like Smith helmets a lot. They're just very well thought out. But anyway, let's take the right side, stick it into the right side. Again, make sure that the grill is facing the right way. And you'll probably have to do some adjustments later. But yeah, let's get these guys in here. I'll step back a bit so you guys watch me put this crap in. Left side, controls. And you kind of want to make sure that for the left side that you're sticking it in with it facing forward. So make sure you follow that orientation with the wire. Make sure it's natural, because that will affect your experience, because the top button is next and volume up, and the bottom button is previous and volume down. So if you have those inverted or kind of finagled differently, it's going to be a little bit counterintuitive. Not, undealable, but, probably more ideal if you follow the progression of your head. Anyway, you'll have some extra cable here, but you can always tuck that into the connector of the lining, which you can usually find as your zipping point. So one thing I forgot to mention, this cable, while it is braided and does seem durable, the fact that it kinks is a little bit concerning, maybe. It just doesn't ever kind of iron out, and it is a lot thinner and less rugged than it sounded like on the description, which said it was rubberized. So yeah, just something to consider here. This is a little bit flimsy and seems like it's prone to kink and tangle to an extent. So if you don't use the case or you just toss it around, you can see that it kind of can get kinked out a little bit. So just a little consideration there, something I forgot to mention. So just hide those away. But before you zip it up, make sure that you put this on your head and you adjust the earbuds accordingly. So you probably have to make sure that the grills fit in. It's also good to play music here, just to make sure that you have the most optimal audio. But for now, at least in terms of setup right now, I won't do it too much. I'll kind of guesstimate accordingly. I usually like using the thumb to find that dimple inside that speaker grill. And then finally, you can seal it up, and you notice that it's not adding a ton of bulk. Again, that's one of the benefits of the Altas, is that they're one of the more slimmer pucks out there, so they won't add a tremendous amount of girth to your ear pads. So yeah, you can definitely feel them. They're a little bit more present if you're used to just nothing inside the ear pads, but they're comfortable. Like, I can smash them and they're not like obtrusive, especially because I put them behind the pads. But yeah, I think they're nice, and they don't make your head look any weirder, and they don't cause any discomfort. So the big thing here is to turn them on. You just have to hold the right side where the big button is, and that big button is very, very tactile. Okay, so my phone has already been connected to it, but if you hold down the button, you can initiate a pairing mode. But since mine's already connected, basically it just went through a sort of startup sequence where it beeped, turned on, gave me the percentage, and then validated that I'm connected by saying connected. It is a pleasant, robotic female voice that greets you. But yeah, that will be on your right side. In terms of like I mentioned before, that tactile button is super loud, so like you'll know when you click that, like absolutely. And that's play, pause. Your assistant, that'll all be there, which again, that assistant is great, especially with big gloves, especially if you're wearing mittens. You don't have to try to take your phone out. You can kind of just call someone, do anything that you can through your assistant, and that makes it really easy for communication, and something we'll get into later in the review. On your left side here, this is where your controls are for your playback playback control and volume. So it is a single click to go next track. So if you click the up one, it'll be next track and previous track if you do the bottom one. And the way you can kind of differentiate that is there is a sort of bar protrusion, and that bar protrusion is where you kind of feel for, and then you just kind of go to the button right above it. So that's what I use, at least, to find those buttons, and it's relatively easy. And then if you want to increase the volume, it's a hold rather than a click. So there's no double click, there's just click and hold. So if I click it once, it'll change the track, progress, and again, let me play some music so I can actually make sure this is working. So then volume up, one track, switch track. Yeah, so it works pretty well. What I will say is that I wish these buttons on the left side were as responsive and clicky as these ones. Like, you're not hearing anything. I am changing tracks actively, but it just feels very squishy, and there's not that sort of confirmation that I would like, so that I know that it's happening. Especially if this phone is in my pocket, I'm not going to really know. Especially if I'm mid-ride, I don't want to think about if I'm holding it down or if I'm just pressing it. I would like that sort of, you know, confirmation to make me know. So unfortunately, these are more squishy. It'll take some getting used to, but not ideal from my perspective, so it's a little bit hard to find the controls as a result. But yeah, I think we should probably get into some sound samples, understand the microphones, and add some more, you know, detail to what these are besides fit, because they look like they work, but do they sound like they work? Alright, so, I don't know why I cut away. I probably could have done that all in one shot, but you know, sometimes I'm not smart. Anyway, I did want to put on my goggles, and I did want to zip it up so that it is the most realistic to what things might sound like. And again, I'm talking outside the helmet, so hopefully you can still hear this, but I'm going to put it on now, since the setup is kind of locked into place. Pardon any jostling you might hear. Okay, helmet on, might as well strap it in. So this is basically what the earbuds sound like when I have everything locked into place. Keep in mind that these probably don't sound the most clear because I am talking through ear pads. The microphones are probably not tuned for optimal voice commands, and yeah, there's no sort of like legs or sort of like a bar to bring a microphone closer to my mouth. It's just straight talking through these, and hopefully they are receiving it from their passive mics. But what I can tell you is I've tried this with a few different friends, and yeah, they weren't fans of the microphones. But I did give them a caveat of like, hey, this is not for us to have long, deep conversations on the mountain. This is more for us to rendezvous on different points in the mountain to make sure we're going to the right lifts and making sure that we're meeting up at the right lodges. So from that perspective, they said it's serviceable, and definitely I was clear enough to get all of that sort of information. And then also hearing back, I was able to pretty loudly hear them. Again, not the most natural tones. This is not optimized for voice conversations. However, people do come in loud, and you know, I'm not really distorted at all in terms of what I'm trying to understand, so I won't sort of get a wrong command or go to the wrong place. It's going to be very, very serviceable for just quick communications with your friends. And again, this is a lot more ideal than this is like picking up your phone, like trying to like take a glove off and then use your touch screen gloves to text them. You could just call someone real quick, take them out, or call them out and then close the call without much hassle. And I've tried this with gloves. All the commands work pretty really well. But yeah, in terms of a voice, you guys can tell me what you think about this and if this is coming in clear and this would be serviceable to you. But I think this would rock on the mountain for us at least. But you probably want to hear how this sounds in terms of audio quality. So let me hook up my heater's mic and we can listen to that. Again, it's not going to be the most optimal because this microphone isn't built for a helmet. It's built for headphones. So there might be some space where things don't come in well. But hopefully it'll give you a little bit of understanding of the sound quality, especially with some ambient noise being able to be impacted. Alright, this is before the music is playing, just to give you a baseline of how this would sound in terms of ambient sound coming from outside the helmet. And we'll start this off, let's say about 25% with music right about now. Okay, so that's 25% with music. Let's move this to 50%. Alright, this is 50% volume. Just again, with the music and my voice, you can kind of get an understanding of what you hear with some maybe ambient noise coming through. move into 75%. Listen to my voice and hear what ambient is coming through next to the music. And finally we go to 100%. And this is pretty obvious for the people outside the helmet and the stuff music. So see what you can hear about my voice next to the music. Hopefully those sound samples were helpful for you. I will say, through listening to this, and I did look like a freak and kind of wear this around the house, listening to music for probably 2 or 3 hours just to get a good sense of what the sound signature was. It's loud enough for sure. On the mountain, I probably wouldn't be playing this full blast. I'd probably be living somewhere around 50 to 75%. Once you start getting those upper volumes, that's when you can kind of get the harshness. So if you're listening to something very treble heavy, some of those things will come in very, very harsh, and you'll realize that sibilance coming in there. That'll definitely irk your ear a bit, especially if there's something with like a high instrument or high voice. It'll ping you in the ear. You'll feel it. On the low end, you're obviously gonna not get tremendous quality out of this. You can definitely feel a little bit of the low end, but it's not gonna thump. And you're probably gonna be missing it, especially in like genres like hip hop and R&B. So there's just a little bit of low end missing, and obviously there's not gonna be a ton of detail in the mid. But overall, I think the sound signature is very pleasant as long as on lower perspectives, but you're not gonna be like wowed by it. It's definitely serviceable for the mountain. You'll be able to get into your music. It's not so tinny where you're gonna be like, what am I listening to? Like, what decade is this from? It's definitely advanced enough where you'll still get some pleasure out of your music. You just won't like get some of those striking elements that are more like audiophilic, but that's not really what these are made for. You're really just getting some ruggedized speakers that fit to your helmet so that you have some convenience in your music listening without too much burden otherwise. So I think they do what they need to do. They're just not going to blow you away in terms of audio quality. And that's kind of where we kind of come into our recommendation. There's not a lot of like hoopla to talk about this. These things come out around $90 bucks. $99, something around that. It's kind of pricey, especially for what they are. You could technically get around with this with some like the older, like, you know, padded earphones from Sony that kind of just like clip around your ear and just fit those into them. They would be wired options, of course. But in terms of like a convenient package that will hold up to weather, and that's the big thing here, is you could find some other things that are compliant. But if you're dealing with colder weather like I do in the Northeast, you want something that's a little bit more water and cold resistant. So this is kind of where these fit in, and the reason why these are kind of a higher price tag. Wildhorn is known for outfitting like helmets. I think they're the US ski team's helmet of choice, so there is a like price tag with that brand. The fact they called it Alta is pretty much should tell you that. But yeah, that they're just a little bit pricey. So as a recommendation, I think there's some quality hits there that I can't justify it necessarily. I do like how it feels on head, and I do like the arrangement of controls, and we'll revisit that in another video. But I don't think I can recommend these. There is another option out there that I'm going to bring up. But yeah, I'm probably not going to bring in these into my trip to Mount Snow coming up. So I'm likely going to return these. I do have another option for you guys, but I do want to do more testing on that, and you guys have to wait for that for another review. I'll be testing those out actually on mountain with my Mount Snow trip and my Aspen trip. So you'll actually be able to see my friends use it. You'll see me using it while I'm skiing and snowboarding, so it'll be a little bit more realistic. I'm just not bringing these out here because I did some initial listening and some initial comfort testing with them, and the other ones performed better. So keep your eye out for that one, especially if you're not looking to spend $99. You might like what I'm about to show you. But unfortunately, I want to make sure that that's an on-mountain review, so that will be coming up in February. But until then, I thank you guys for checking it out. I hope this was fun. This was a little bit different, obviously, and trying to record these was a little bit more annoying than I expected because my helmet doesn't fit on the microphone perfectly. I have to like prop it up with cardboard and stuff to make sure that the ear pads aligned. But yeah, different tech in terms of audio, but definitely something that I think is applicable to a lot of people in colder weather, because you always want to have your jams. When do you not? But anyways, thank you guys for sticking with the channel. I appreciate you helping with the growth and continuing to comment. I know that there are some like old conversations spinning up, and I love to see that, like you guys testing this stuff out for yourself, sharing your thoughts on them, other people chiming in on their thoughts, debugging amongst each other. It's kind of cool to see this little community grow. I think we're around 1270 in terms of subscribers. Definitely looking to grow that more throughout. But if you haven't check out my latest post on, well, one of my latest posts. I post a lot in terms of like actual like community posts, but there is a community post there. It'll kind of tell you my lineup going into the first first 3 months of this year. Just like basically every Sunday I'm trying to release some kind of content around like a main video with a review. So that kind of breaks down my like Sunday by Sunday review schedule, and now obviously with every video I do try to do the 2 shorts along with it, just to sort of have 3 days of content for you guys throughout the day. And I kind of like making those shorts because it reminds me of what my thoughts were about it without having to go through my entire video. And I think it's good excerpts for you guys if you just want a really quick bite in the morning rather than having to sit through one of my extremely long videos. We are also looking to do more live streams and other content in there, so definitely check out that post because it also goes over those topics, other products I have on hand that I don't necessarily have a time slot for in terms of a review schedule. But if you guys want to see those things or have other suggestions, please feel free to put them in the comments because I love seeing those, and I definitely compile all the things that you want. It's just like up until March, until the end of March, I just have all this stuff on hand I need to get through before I continue taking community requests. So please be patient. I know that you guys have asked for a lot of budget earbuds, you know, some other sort of audio devices out there too. I will get to them. It's just I need to get through the old the old requests and other things that have been sent to me first, and then we'll start doing things in Q2 around whatever you guys decide on. I'll start putting out some polls as well to get a taste, but that'll probably come out more towards the March time frame. But yeah, I appreciate you guys sticking around with me, and always I'll appreciate you. I'll see you on the mountain shortly.